Hey everyone, Minutia Minute here, coming at you guys with a video that absolutely no one asked for, except for me. I started searching for a video like this one and couldn't find it, so I decided, you know what, it's up to me to make one. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys, the chances that, this is going to be a video that is going to have a huge amount of relevance on your life is almost zero. But I implore you, please stick around and learn about the Wars universe with me. I think you'll be glad that you did, because the universe is pretty cool, actually. It's a completely defunct universe. It doesn't really exist anywhere outside of, at this point, ancient gaming history from 20-some years ago. And so it just kind of makes for a fun oddity. So what exactly is Wars? Simple version is it's a trading card game. It was put out by Decipher in the mid-2000s. After they lost the Star Wars CCG license, they came up with this harebrained scheme of creating their own version of a sci-fi universe. They had only ever worked in owned properties like Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. So they wanted something they wouldn't have to worry about losing the rights to. They had the popular mechanics of the Star Wars CCG, the benefit of hindsight, and they said, what if we transplant that rule set into our own universe and create the Wars trading card game, basically maintaining the core rule set of the Star Wars CCG, just streamlining it a bit like any grand marketing scheme that a company comes up with. This was a multi-pronged approach, so we had the trading card game, which we're going to look at here a little bit today, but then there was also the role-playing game, for which there were 3 books released for. There was the core rulebook. There was Wars Battlefront, which is basically like the second half of the core rulebook. Finally, there was the Incursion campaign book. Decipher attempted to create a universe that would be long-lasting, so they created a long, basically 10-year story arc that was going to be told throughout the course of multiple expansions for the card games and the role-playing games, that tells the saga of these various factions in our solar system. Despite their grand plans, this was kind of Decipher at the end of their rope. They got out the core set, which was the Incursion set, the Nowhere to Hide expansion. They were about 3/4 of the way done through the 3rd expansion, and pre-orders were slim pickings, and they opted, even though it was almost done, not even to release it. Some of the plans of what they were going to do with the storyline later came out online. Basically, what you see here is what you get. There were a couple illustrated books that were released in like 2013, 2014, when there was sort of a soft attempt to revive the franchise, but it was kind of a franchise that never was, so, that kind of went nowhere. Now, as you may have already guessed, my interest in this whole universe really stems out of my love of the Star Wars CCG. The Wars card game was kind of a footnote to that series, and so it caused me to kind of seek it out. And over the past few days, I've just been starting to dig into the lore ahead of opening some of these card packs, and kind of really liked what I saw. While I'm not going to be able to create a comprehensive guide, I can at least share my experience digging into this universe for the first time, and then if someone happens to stumble onto this video and find it useful, then that's just a bonus. So at the time of recording this video, I've really only looked at 2 things. I read through the Incursion rulebook, which you can see right here. I haven't opened any of the card packs, but there was a loose manual in the lot that I got. So I was able to take a glance through this. Some video in the future, I'll go through the rules in a little bit more detail, which will retroactively probably help you understand when I talk about the Star Wars CCG in the future. The nice thing about this is, since there's only the 1 expansion, it's a lot easier to kind of go through the whole rule book without it being like an hour-long mega video, right? The other piece of material I've dug into is I went through and read the core rulebook, and I basically did it in its entirety because I'm nuts like that. I didn't dig into all the specifics of the Game Master rules, but I went through all the lore that was in here. This is where I was really impressed because, there really is a fully realized world to be found in the Wars universe. I think they probably would have had more luck if they called it something a little less generic than just Wars. Like, good luck Googling that. Like, you know, there's probably some amount of content out there for this game. It's just impossible to find because of this generic ass name. But as I was reading through this and kind of Googling things here and there, I thought it was interesting because there's some really significant futurists and, you know, fantasy illustrators that were involved in the creation of this universe, actually. Michael A. Stackpole, who I love from the Star Wars X-Wing novels, but is famous for his work on things like BattleTech, helped co-create a lot of the concepts that we're going to talk about here today in this video. The other name that really jumped out to me as I was digging into this material was John Howe, was a concept artist. John Howe is famous for his illustrations of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. Really a visionary guy. So kind of crazy to see, you know, these big name people going all in on, you know, what was ultimately a foolish project, you know, probably doomed to failure in all reality. Even if Decipher was really in their A game, this is one of those things where it's a solution in search of a problem. The only thing it's really solving is, you know, a problem that the company has, not a problem that the consumer actually has. But anyway, I thought it would be fun today just to kind of go through some of the loosest elements of the Wars universe, what the basic timeline of this universe is, and basically 3 of the 5 classes, which you can actually see listed above the Wars title: Earther, Gongen, Maverick, She, and Quay. What each of those factions are like and how they fit into the universe. And then we'll open up 2 of the starter packs at the end of the video and get our first look at the Wars trading cards, which I've never seen before. I've never cracked one of these packs. I've never cracked a starter box. This is a completely new experience. So basically, the core concept of this universe is in the mid-2100s, the entire continent of Asia was almost completely destroyed by a nuclear accident. The Chinese, Indian, Japanese cultures basically had to flee the planet because of the survivors. There was really no place for them to go, and they ended up traveling to Mars and colonizing Mars. This led to a pretty distinct split in human society because the Western civilizations had become more and more corporatized. All public works became private works, and basically corporations eventually superseded the government. There's one central corporate entity called the CGC. So on one hand, you have half of humanity that's basically hyper-corporate. Think Judge Dredd. They describe giant megaplexes housing tens of thousands of people, very much like Mega City 1. And on the other hand, you have these Asian peoples that colonize Mars. They're communist, and they build basically the opposite type of a culture. That is a caste system. It's very rigidly controlled. They are quasi-run by an AI that helped save a bunch of lives during the disaster by shutting down a bunch of haywire nuclear power plants. Not enough to save Asia, but enough to save many of their people. And so this AI is basically their de facto leader in cooperation with, you know, the upper ruling class of these Asian colonies. And right off the bat, it's kind of interesting seeing these 2 different civilizations developing, because even though they're kind of opposite, you know, one's like hyper-corporate and one is hyper-communist, they're both basically fascist, which I think is just kind of an interesting, understated element in the story, but definitely kind of working in the background there. There is a 3rd faction, though, called the Mavericks, and they are basically pirates living in the Outer Rim. They were sent out there to gather resources. Eventually, humans started sending prisoners out there in exile, and they have since sort of formed their own sense of individualistic community. In some ways, they kind of remind me of the Nihil in Star Wars The High Republic, if you watched my video on that. But basically, you know, they're all out for themselves. They're just bands of pirates, loosely kept together. Earthers and Gongen really don't care that they're off doing their own thing, as long as the precious resources that are getting mined in their areas make it back to Earth, make it back to Mars, that kind of a thing. And one of the cool things about the Mavericks that is also kind of similar to the Nihil in Star Wars is that they're very cyberpunk. They're into, you know, mechanically manipulating their bodies. And in the core rulebook, there is a ton of juicy details around different appendages you can get for your character if you're playing the role-playing game, what those things do, you know, mechanical organs, mechanical eyes, mechanical limbs. There's just a ton of creativity poured into the Mavericks and the various different mechanical enhancements that you can use in the game. And I'm really excited to see what the card game does with those enhancements and how they're kind of utilized in gameplay with the card sets. Now, at the risk of this video going on for too long, I'm only briefly going to talk about the Shi and the Kuei. They are barely covered in the core rulebook. My understanding is they're covered in much more detail in the Battlefront rulebook, which is why I kind of refer to this as the second half of the core rulebook. The Shi and the Kuei are the true aliens of this franchise. Sometime in the late 2300s, a rift opens up in space-time and a planet comes through it. It is the Shi. They are these sort of ghost-like figures. They're described as having white faces, and they communicate only through telepathy. They float everywhere they go because they kind of telepathically move around. And they basically fled to our solar system because their former slaves, the Kuei, nearly overthrew them. And the Kuei are basically like crab monsters. They have spidery crab legs, but then they have sort of humanish torsos with what I would picture to be sort of insectoid faces. And so now you have this five-way conflict. The Earthers, the Gongen, the Mavericks, the Shi, and the Kuei. All of them with various different reasons to want to control the solar system. The Shi with their planet basically on life support, being stranded in the middle of our solar system, not getting enough sunlight. Kuei out for revenge against the Shi. The Mavericks beholden to no one, no allegiance. And then the philosophically opposed Earthers and Gongen themselves, who are basically too busy fighting amongst themselves to preserve the safety of the human race. So that about covers the broad strokes of what I covered in the core role-playing game rulebook and the few little tidbits we got in the trading card game rulebook. I'm going to use the rest of this video to dig into the first couple of starter packs. And I'll say right off the bat, the nice thing about these starter packs is, unlike the Star Wars CCG, which for most of their starter decks were not pre-constructed, they were just random cards. These are pre-constructed, so if you flip them around and take a look at the back, it gives a little bit of a blurb about the timeline and talks about what's in this actual deck. The year is 2391 AD. The Moon and Mars have long been colonized. Alien races have emerged from a tear in the fabric of space. Open conflict rages as 5 factions battle for control of our solar system's rich resources. The wars have begun. This 60-card deck is pre-constructed, contains 5 foils, exclusive cards, and an illustrated, easy-to-understand rulebook. 15-card booster packs are also available, in addition to the starter packs. So there were 4 different starter packs. I'm opening half of them today, and I'm doing this in a somewhat strategic manner. So the 2 that we're opening today are the Alliance starter and the Solidarity starter, which if you look on the sides, you'll see that the Solidarity starter is exclusively a Gongen deck, and the Alliance deck is an Earther and Maverick hybrid deck. The other 2 packs are Shi and Kuei focused, so I will save that for the next video where I cover the Wars Battlefront role-playing game book, which covers those specific factions in more detail, and then wrap up with these couple starter boxes before digging into some of the expansion packs in a later video after that. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with the Earther and Maverick deck. Honestly, the Maverick characters are the ones I'm the most intrigued by. If I could build a Maverick deck tomorrow, that'd probably be what I would go for, just based on my understanding of the universe. They just sound like the most fun to play. So we'll start with the Earther Maverick hybrid deck to try and get a little bit better look at what these guys are all about before wrapping things up with the Gongen deck. And I just want to say, those of you guys who are still watching this random video, that I've decided to do. I just want to say you guys are the true believers, and thank you so much for watching this, because the reality is, like, you know, this is the kind of stuff I get really excited about. Like, I love digging into, like, a dead RPG and just immersing myself. When I come by something like this, where it's a much smaller universe, you know, you can really take the time, soak it all in, become expert at it, and just kind of live in that universe for a bit, which is what I'm excited to do. So those of you guys who are taking this journey with me, I just, again, gotta say thank you. It's really cool to have you here. All right, so opening it up, looks like we've got a rule book. Oh, is there a rule book in here? Hang on. There's no rule book in here. So that's interesting. I don't quite know what to make of that, to be honest with you guys. It includes an easy to understand rule book. You guys saw me open this. It was clearly an original seal. It should have had one of these in there. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see if there is a rule book in this other Incursion set. Okay, so looking at the top, we have got kind of a bunch of cards to go through, so I'll probably go through these relatively quickly. We'll look a little bit closer at these when we get into the actual expansion packs. And we'll just kind of focus on art for now. So kicking things off, we have Josel Swin, and you'll note this logo here on the side. This denotes that they are a member of the Earthen faction, and so I would presume all of the green cards are going to be Earther faction. And as you can see, this is one of our foil cards. We've got another foil card, the Survey Cruiser. Cool art on that one, actually. I like that design concept. We have got State of Readiness, and again, these are all Earther cards so far. This is an Interrupt. We have another Josel Swin. We have Fifth Ace. So this right here denotes that this is a member of the Maverick faction. As you can see, they have kind of a brown parchment color going on. This is another Interrupt. There are, in addition to the 5 factions, also going to be neutral cards. I'm assuming those are white or something like that. Just like Star Wars, there are locations. So this is the Earth Corporate Headquarters. All right, we have a Flick, which is a Fusion Light Infantry Cannon. I read about this in the role-playing game guide, and this is an Earther faction item. We have the Ganymede Exploratory Camp. Another Flick. An Independent Transport. This color would denote that it's neutral, although it seems to be Maverick focused, so I'm not 100% sure on that. We'll just set it off to the side over here for now. All right, we have a CGC Grunt. We have another Ganymede. We have another Ganymede Exploratory Camp, and Ganymede is the colony where the Mavericks were sent to harvest various raw minerals for the rest of the solar system. Or we have Zealous Squad, which is a character, Earther. GR Blade, which is an infantry escort of some kind. We have an infantry officer, another CGC Grunt, an Assault Guru. We have a Vulture, which is a particular ship type. Alright, we have a vertical location, so this basically is a sector. The series Belt Hideaway. Similar to Star Wars, you would have a planet and then various site locations. Same thing basically here. We have a valley on Ganymede. Another Zealous Squad card. A Themis landing pad. Another Vulture. A Consigned Trooper. An Infantry Officer, I think we had that already. Another exploratory camp, another consigned trooper, another flick, collaborative strike. I think we saw that one already too. It's an interrupt. Another zealous squad, another vulture, a CGC grunt, another location on Ganymede. This is a frontier camp. I'm kind of breezing through it, but I do think the artwork on this is actually pretty darn cool. I would love your guys' opinion down in the comments, what you guys think of this. We have entrenched infantry, another GR blade, a stinger, which is a vehicle, and you'll notice there are various subtypes in here. So this is a vehicle for the Hellcats. The Hellcats are one of the major Maverick factions. Not the biggest one, but like the second biggest one. We have another frontier camp, another infantry officer, another stinger, another assault guru, another exploratory camp, and we are getting into duplicates land here for sure. As I said, I'm kind of breezing through these cards pretty quickly right now because I just want to give you guys a taste of what this universe kind of looks like. When we get into the 15 card expansions, that's where I'll go into a little bit more detail and dig into the lore, because that's where I really want to dig into it myself as well. It's just too much in one video to, you know, really dig in. So really these cards for now are just to provide flavor, as you guys, you know, sort of get the overview of what this universe is like with me. All right, we have another Ganymede location. This is a vantage point, a stinger, a GR blade, an independent transport, a vulture, an entrenched infantry. We have a neutral interrupt. This is expansion. Another assault guru, another expansion, stinger, a frontier camp, and then we've got a Maverick bot. Kind of a cool robot design on this one. We have an Earther bot, and finally another collaborative strike. So as you can see based on this deck, like this is very much primarily an Earther deck with just a little bit of Maverick sprinkled in. I would love to see, you know, just more details on the Mavericks, because again, you know, there's a lot of potential for cards with the cybernetic implants and the various sort of cobbled together vehicles and technology that they have kind of running their colonies. This is clearly a starter deck, right? Like lots of multiples of very simple generic cards, you know, infantryman, like, you know, there's not a whole lot to get from that. Only one proper character, which was Jostle Swin. I believe this is a card that's unique to this starter deck. A former squad leader, Swin was demoted when his hatred of the Mavericks manifested in extreme violence. Since the rift opened, his sanity has been in constant flux. So yeah, pretty interesting. He's a Kaizen, which I didn't talk at all about the Kaizen. All the major players in the universe are kind of like X-Men. They have a specific trait that is somehow superhuman, telekinetic, what have you. The rift, when it opened into our solar system, released a bunch of like gamma rays or something that has caused people to unlock their special powers. So the fact that this character is a Kaizen just means that specifically. You'll also note that they have the keyword Seisen. The Seisen was a corporation. So there are, you know, a handful of super corporations that run this solar system, right? The Seisen is one of them. I don't remember what it stands for, but like I said, we'll dig into some of the nitty-gritty of that stuff when we get into the 15 card booster packs. So having opened up the first one, let's go ahead and take a look at what the Gongen are like, which I'm really excited to see what these cards look like in particular, because the way they're described in the core rulebook is they're sort of space samurai, which I think is pretty cool and I'm excited to see play out. All right, breathe a sigh of relief, everyone. We do have a fresh brand new copy of the Wars rulebook here. Really weird that it wasn't included in that other starter pack. I guess it just must have been an accidental omission, but whatever, it's all good. We have got our first Gongen card. All of these cards should be Gongen or neutral. This person is also a Kaizen. The fact that they're a Shikami is in reference to their caste system, and I don't remember if that's like a specific family or a specific class within the caste that Turaku would be a member of, but I'll have to do a little research and get back to you on that. This is a foil here. We have got a Lore Master, which is also a foil. We have a proper ship, so not just a generic ship, but a specific ship, the Zocho. We have a second copy of Kujiko Turaku. We have another foil, which is Cloud, which is an interrupt. And it's basically like a swarm of starfighters. That's a pretty cool card, and you'll notice this is that same ship we saw in the Earther deck a little while ago. So some nice parity there. All right, digging into some locations, we've got an underground bunker on Ganymede, which I think is kind of interesting that we have got Ganymede. We have a resource technician. We have a Tamon fighter. I don't know what a Tamon is off the top of my head. I'll have to figure that out. A grid tactician. We have a pilgrim's camp on Ganymede. We have a Jikogu fighter, which is another ship. Dauntless Defense. Here you can kind of see some of the sort of samurai influences on this culture. Their spacesuits are like samurai suits that are just like pressurized the way the core rulebook describes them. Another Jikoku fighter. Ikazuchi leader. That's another cool one. I like the sort of blurred background and the smoke trail of his rocket pack. That's kind of a stunning little picture, actually. Not super detailed, but impactful. All right, another pilgrim camp. Another grid tactician. Ikazuchi TSV, which is a vehicle, possibly a land-based vehicle. This kind of is giving me Jabba's barge vibes because of the little side fins there. Kind of funny. Ikazuchi leader. Jikoku fighter. Grid tactician. Resource technician. Pilgrim's camp. Ikazuchi. Resource technician. Grid tactician. Guardian class character. Here's a new one. And again, we'll dig into the details of actual gameplay a little bit later on, but you'll notice, like, if you're familiar with the Star Wars CCG cards, like, there's a lot of parallels going on here. Some things are, expressed slightly differently, but, right down to you have a destiny number right here that changes the result of a battle, sort of the randomizing element in a battle. That exists here. It's called the destiny number, exactly like in the Star Wars CCG. A Zochu fighter. This is a new card, I think. Shikami follower. A series belt hideaway, which we have already seen that card, but in the Earther set we just looked at. The whole point of the game is to drain someone of their energy as opposed to their force in Star Wars CCG, but it's the same mechanic. You're trying to empty their deck until they don't have any cards left. You have a reserve deck, a force pile, a used pile, and a lost pile, exactly like in Star Wars as well. So, really just basically Star Wars. Like, the end of the day, this is basically Star Wars. But I do find this appealing because, again, it's a unique universe that I can just kind of sink my teeth into. So it's, doesn't have any baggage with it. There's no Phantom Menace for the Wars trading card game, for example. But then also, again, simplified rules. Like, it's not as complicated. And just looking at these cards, although of course I landed on one that has a fair amount of text, but a lot of them, you know, you can tell they've clearly streamlined this. Clearly much simpler. There is fewer words, more symbols, just greater consistency across the line. All right, so here's a new card, the Komuko. One thing I'm noticing about all these Gongen chips is they're very insectoid. This looks like a grasshopper almost. Cool design here. And also, like the Star Wars CCG, by the way, you see the little bullet next to the card name. That is an indication that this is a unique card. You can't have more than one of them in play because it's a, you know, an actual named vehicle and not just a generic transport. The Shikami TSV, Dauntless Defense, Tammen Fighter, Guardian class carrier, I think we saw this one, Ikazuchi Leader, a Pilgrim Camp, Guardian class carrier. Alright, a new location. We've got Ganymede, the Traginium Source. So Traginium is like unobtainium in Avatar, I believe. It's just some kind of exclusive mineral that you can only get on Ganymede. It's why they sent, you know, outcast humans to live out in the Outer Rim. That has caused the creation of this whole Maverick faction, is, you know, to have access to this Traginium source or whatever. I think it said in the rulebook that the Shi or the Quay specifically are like hyper reliant on that as a resource, so that's like a major pain point among the factions as well. Zocho Fighter, Taihu, which is a weapon. Cool. Shikami Follower, Jikoku Fighter, another Taihu, Ikazuchi TSV, yet another Pilgrim Camp. I don't quite know why there isn't more variation in the locations. Like, I can understand the idea that, you know, you're going to have, you know, the same types of armored warriors or something like that, or the same types of ships to fight in a battle, but it seems like you would have a greater variety of locations. One of the fun things about Star Wars was, you know, building the planet Tatooine and then all of the different locations that existed in the movies all on one sort of big card map as you know, executed the gameplay. But either way, it's all good. We have Gongen Pilgrim's Haven. So this is a planet sector, which means this is Mars. Remember, Gongen is Mars, just in the future. All right, we've got Shikami TSV, Zocho Fighter. Yep. Seen it. Oh, new one. Rising Morale and Interrupt. Mercury, the untapped planet. This is a great little rendition of the planet Mercury. It's like hanging right underneath the sun. It reminds me of the movie Sunshine. If you've ever seen the movie Sunshine, when they cross Mercury, it kind of looks like this. Really cool. All right, and then another Taihu, another Rising Morale, and last card, a Ganymede Vantage Point. So there you have it. Those are the first two starter decks in the Wars trading card game, connected with the Wars role-playing game, but it's really all the same universe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too out of left field for you guys. If it was, I certainly understand. Like I said, I'm kind of making this video for myself in a sense, because this is a video I wish I could go out and watch. Having bought these cards and this role-playing game recently, I've been waiting to dig into it, and when I went to dig into it, there was no real resources to draw on. It was just kind of me and my ability to read the role-playing game, and that was kind of it. Someone else stumbles upon these cards. I mean, they're not expensive. You can get, you know, a full booster box of these for 20 bucks online. Maybe even less if you do a little bit of shopping around. Shipping included on that, by the way. You know, someone's going to buy a pack of these cards at some point and not know much about what it is and want to learn more, so here I am, throwing my words out into the void. Part of what I love about YouTube is you know, it's like a message in a bottle, and you never know when someone's going to pick it up and read it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have a great week in gaming. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.